Today, we're going to talk about a word you probably haven't thought much about since Econ 101, but we're not treating it like a textbook term. We're treating it for what it really is, a powerful strategic weapon. That word is elasticity, and we're going to focus on the elasticity advantage, how you can use it to really understand your customers, shape your market, and frankly, run circles around your competition.
So let's just jump right in with a question. You've all seen this, right? A TV goes on sale for 50% off, and suddenly there are lines around the block. It's a stampede. But what happens when your local gas station drops its price by a few cents? You probably don't detour to fill up 10 extra gas cans. So what gives? Why is our reaction to these two discounts so completely different?
Well, the answer, in one simple word, is elasticity. It's this sort of hidden force that quietly guides almost all of our decisions as consumers. And look, for any business, getting a handle on this isn't just some academic exercise. It is the absolute key to unlocking your pricing power, to building a killer competitive strategy, and to creating that customer loyalty that everybody wants.
So here's how we're going to tackle this today. First, we'll define the core idea. Then we'll break it down into 4 distinct types, kind of like a framework. We'll do a deep dive on what really drives demand, look at some wild real-world examples, and then we'll bring it all home to what really matters, the business bottom line.
Okay, Section 1. Before we can really use this thing, we've got to be crystal clear on what it is. So let's lay that foundation. What exactly is the elasticity advantage?
You know, at its core, elasticity is really just a measure of sensitivity. That's it. It answers the question, how much does one thing change when you change something else? And most of the time, we're talking about how much demand for a product changes when its price goes up or down. If people are super responsive, we call it elastic. If they barely react, it's inelastic. It's a simple idea, but trust me, the implications are huge.
All right, to make this really strategic, we can't just talk about elasticity as one big blob. We need a framework. So we're going to break it down into 4 distinct, non-overlapping categories. Think of it as a complete 360-degree view of any market you're looking at.
First up is the one we all kind of know, price elasticity of demand. It's simple. If you change your price, how much does demand change? If a tiny price drop leads to a massive sales spike, demand is elastic. If you hike prices and sales barely budge, well, that's inelastic. This right here is your main lever for pricing strategy.
Next, there's income elasticity. Now, this isn't about your price tag. It's about what's in your customer's wallet. When people start making more money, do they buy way more of your product, like they might with a luxury watch? Or does it stay pretty much the same, like with, say, toothpaste? This tells you how your business will likely perform in a boom or a bust.
Now, this is where competitive strategy gets really interesting. Cross-elasticity of demand. Let's say your main competitor raises their prices and suddenly your sales go up. Well, congratulations, you're substitutes. On the flip side, imagine you sell ketchup and the price of hot dogs doubles. If your sales drop, your compliments. Understanding this relationship is everything for positioning yourself in the market.
And finally, we just flip the coin and look at the producer's side. Price elasticity of supply. How fast can you make more stuff when prices shoot up? A software company can sell another 1 million copies tomorrow at basically 0 cost. That's a highly elastic supply. But a winery? They can't just magically produce more 20-year-old Cabernet overnight. That's a highly inelastic supply.
So here it is, our whole framework on one slide. It's kind of like a cheat sheet. You can see we're always measuring the response of either demand or supply, and we're tying it to different triggers. Your price, your competitor's price, your customer's income, or the market price. These are the 4 lenses every strategist absolutely needs.
Okay, so we've got our framework. Now let's go a level deeper. We're going to focus on the big one, price elasticity of demand, and ask the most important question. What actually makes demand sensitive or insensitive to price? What's going on under the hood?
It really just boils down to 3 main drivers. First, the availability of substitutes. Second, how much of a necessity it is. And third, the elements of time. Let's break down each one.
First up, substitutes. Honestly, this is where the game is often won or lost. Think about this coffee versus caffeine example. If your favorite coffee shop doubles its prices, you have options, right? You can switch to tea, grab an energy drink, or just go to another coffee shop. Demand for that specific coffee is super elastic. But what if the thing you're really buying is caffeine? Well, for that core need, there are fewer good substitutes. That's why the whole goal of branding is to make your product feel like it's in a category of one. Next up, necessity. This one seems obvious. A spa day is a luxury, demand is elastic. Insulin or gasoline are essentials, demand is inelastic. But here's the key strategic insight. Necessity isn't just about literal survival. The best brands in the world make their products feel like necessities. They make themselves essential to your routine, your identity, your lifestyle.
And finally, there's the crucial factor of time. See, elasticity isn't static. It changes. Think about cigarettes. In the short term, because of addiction, demand is incredibly inelastic. A price hike today won't stop someone from buying a pack tomorrow. But as this quote shows, over the long run, that same price hike gives them the motivation and the time to find a way to quit. The lesson here is critical. A short-term pricing advantage can vanish as people adjust over time.
Okay, so we've got the theory, we've got the drivers. Now let's see these forces out in the wild. Because these aren't just ideas on a slide, they shape our world in some really dramatic and sometimes pretty shocking ways.
A perfect example you've probably all experienced is Uber's surge pricing. A concert gets out, it starts raining, and everyone wants a ride right now. In that moment, your demand is super inelastic. You don't have many good alternatives. The algorithm jacks up the price, which does two things. It makes some people wait, and it gets a lot more drivers to head to that area to cash in. It's elasticity working in real time.
Now let's look at something way more dramatic. Remember early in the pandemic, major meat processing plants had to shut down, which created a huge shock to the supply chain. But people still needed to eat. Demand for meat, a staple food, stayed highly inelastic. So what happens when inelastic demand crashes into a sudden drop in supply?
Well, this happens. A 16% jump in meat import prices in a single month. That number isn't just a statistic. It is the painful, real-world result of inelasticity. When something people need becomes scarce, prices can go through the roof. But it gets even crazier, especially on the supply side. Also in 2020, as the world went into lockdown, demand for oil just fell off a cliff. Planes weren't flying, nobody was driving, but oil producers couldn't just turn off the taps overnight, and all the storage tanks around the world were filling up fast. And that led to one of the most bizarre moments in modern economic history. For a short time, the price of crude oil went negative. Just let that sink in for a second. Sellers were literally paying buyers to take oil off their hands, all because their supply was so inelastic they couldn't stop pumping, and they had absolutely nowhere left to put it.
Okay, we've seen the theory, we've seen the wild, real-world examples, so let's bring this all back to the most important question for you. So what? How do you actually use this to build a better strategy? You know, this slide really sums up the entire playbook. If your product is elastic, meaning customers have lots of other choices, then your world is all about price and volume. Your strategy has to be about being efficient and selling a lot. But if your product is inelastic, you're playing a totally different game. Your goal isn't to be the cheapest, it's to build a fortress around your brand, to reinforce that feeling of necessity, and to make sure your customers feel like there are no other good options. And that really brings us to the final critical question. This is the challenge that elasticity puts to every single one of us, whether you're a CEO, an innovator, or a marketer. Are you selling something that people could easily live without? Or have you, through your branding, your innovation, your deep understanding of your customer, managed to turn your product from a simple convenience into something they perceive as a necessity? The answer to that question is going to define your pricing power, your strategy, and ultimately your success.